hour. I have never in my life ever compared a player to Jerome Brown. You know, I've been doing this now for almost 30 years, 32 years, something like that. I've been in broadcasting. I've never in a million years ever compared a player. Jalen Carter, in many ways, on and off, has a lot of characteristics. I've never done this. And as you know, I've been doing it as of late. I told Phil Simms this last week. Mike Golic played next to him and knows the strengths and positives and weaknesses and strengths of Jerome. When you watch Jalen Carter, you see it. Let's bring my friend Mike Golic on now. And Mike, I appreciate you coming aboard. Thank you so much, my friend.
You got it, man.
Mike, I compared Jalen Carter to Jerome. And follow me when I say this to you. Did he have issues in college? Were there question marks? Yes. We were crazy dudes. We all made mistakes. Jerome lived on the edge. Jalen Carter, decision-making. Sometimes Jerome wasn't in shape. All that stuff. I remember having conversations with Buddy about his conditioning. If he's at 10, would you draft him if you're Howie Roseman?
Wow. You know, when I've covered Jalen a couple of times when I was calling college games, and well, that defense that they had obviously was incredible for the last couple of years. He is incredible. And so what do you usually do when you see a guy that's that good? You start to look for any kind of red flag. And then we obviously saw it with the tragic accident that went on and how he dealt with that, because there's that side of it, which is more concerning because there were lives lost. So that takes precedent on that. But then, you know, when it gets back to football, there was a time that Jalen had a chance because he didn't do anything at the combine because he had to leave there before he came back to turn himself in. Then he had his pro day, you know, so then you show up to your pro day a little heavier and you can't finish your drill. So immediately, because you know how scouts are, Dan. I mean, they want you to be 1,000% football all the time. That's your entire life was football no matter what. I mean, Myles Garrett, God forbid, he decided, you know, to have a little mind of his own and do his own thing a little bit. And everybody was a little nervous of that. I'd say he debunked that pretty quickly by being an incredible edge rusher. But this is one about, can you prepare yourself? If things get rough, do you shut down? You know, in the beginning, Dan, I had said I would take this guy. And I think I would still lean toward taking him. I would, but because the one thing I saw out of Jerome, whenever Jerome was on the football field, Jerome went 1,000%. Now, yeah, you could say, was he always, you know, in shape to be on the football field? How did he take care of himself and all that? But we went on the football. Listen, if Jerome didn't unfortunately pass away, him and his nephew in that accident, Jerome was on a career for a Hall of Fame, on path for a Hall of Fame career. No, there's zero doubt about that.
Zero.
He's one of the best I've ever seen play the interior the way he does. I would say at the end of the day, I would probably roll the dice on Jalen Carter, that he's such a talent on the field that you would kind of take him, and let's be honest, you kind of cross your fingers a little bit and hope you're getting the guy that you see that can be devastating on the field.
Mike, to me, it comes down to the interview. Make me not want to take you, because I think like what you and I say is this: son, your decision-making is my problem here. You knew you had what you had to do getting ready for the combines. You knew when you had your pro day. And to me, tell me why you're not prepared for that. Remember Randy Gregory? The guys all told him, don't smoke weed before the combines. The guy fell to the third round, and I'm like, decision-making, Mike, when you're getting that kind of money and they're going to put a 10th pick on you, man, you got to know the room. And not knowing the room is my problem and my only red flag with the kid problem.
Listen, I'm one of those, if they take him, I could see why. And if they don't, I can see why. Because I've said this for years. The combine, I'm a little tired of the combine, and sometimes the pro days as well. Again,
Well, guys in shorts, Mike.
I mean, we had Anthony Richardson, who, by the way, is just an incredible freak athlete, but we knew that. And again, we got to hear about somebody rolling left and throwing it 55 yards down the field. Didn't everybody go gaga over Zach Wilson doing that in shorts
Absolutely.
and t-shirt? What the hell good did that do you? So my only point to saying that is I'm not a big fan of the combine or the pro days outside of the interviews, especially with quarterback, but the interviews and getting to know someone. The thing about it is you're choosing to do the combine and or pro day. So now my thought is be ready to do it. I think some of the drills are a waste of time, but if you're going to do it, make them the best. Make it look like you have prepared yourself for this test, even though I think the test can be a little iffy, but you've prepared yourself for it. And he didn't. So that's a red flag. And I'm with you. So you sit in that room and you say, why were you 9 pounds heavier? Why couldn't you finish the drills? And tell me why we wouldn't think something might affect you after we draft you that's going to make you do the same thing and not be ready to play. And hear what he has to say, because that's the unfortunate thing as well. When you go to these places to train, they also kind of tell you what to say as well. So you have to kind of filter through, is he telling me what I want to hear, or am I really buying into what he's saying?
Mike, I said this about this draft. I see probably 3 wild players. Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, maybe the kid from Tech, Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher guy.
Yeah.
The rest of them, Mike, probably through 25. It's probably going to be a good draft for till 25. Then the rest of them, I don't know. I mean, I don't really see a ton of wild guys. The Eagles are sitting at 10. Mike, what kills me is I hear people in Philly doing this. Well, hell, I'm not going to waste a running back here to save Jalen Hurts. I mean, it's a unique offense. It's not like the Kansas City offense. You got to take carries away from that guy because it's a dual threat quarterback. So take some of the carries away. Why do people still to this day, Mike, they do this? I'd rather take the need position and the lesser player at 10 than the player that's the better player at 10 that can help you.
So I've been on this like you. Listen, we played in the league a while, and we've covered now the league for a long time. And you always hear that best player, or what do you actually need? I'm one of those, man, if you have a need, you got to fill your need. What is your need? Fill your need. Now, if you don't have a lot of needs, then go ahead and grab the best player available. Robinson, I love this. It reminds me of Marshall Faulk.
Yeah.
Running the ball and being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. There's him, and then there's a drop-off with the rest of the running backs. And we know the thought process of running backs in the first round. Get through that first contract. How much of a beating do they take? And then to try and get him to that second contract. But I'm with you. If I have a glaring need, now, if your glaring need is at 6 or 5 or 10, since we're talking about Philly or any team, if there is a need there. But the one thing you have to weigh, if the best player for your need doesn't grade to the 10th pick, then you have some issues, because what's the goal of every team is especially if you're drafted high, you want to get that impact player. But after that, you want to steal players. You want to draft them lower than they should be going, so you don't have to pay them as much or work it that way. You want to try and maximize where you're getting them, and even if you have to drop back a little bit, now you run the risk of losing that person. But that would be what I would say. If you have a big need at 10, and the guy that fits your need is there at 10, but you don't have a grade as that high of a pick, then that's where I kind of run into problems that say, okay, do I try and trade back? Do I try and steal him later? Or do I go for the best player available?
And Mike, to me, if you're rebuilding, you don't take a running back at 10. But when you're the NFC champion and you got this pick because you stole it from New Orleans last year, and you're one of the favorites to win the NFC, Mike, I'm taking a player that could try to get me over the hump right now. And that's what this kid does for me a little bit. I mean, right?
Yes. Now, what I'll say is, remember, you already lost Hargrave on the D line, and
Correct.
your D line, the guys you brought back, they're all in their 30s. They're getting older, right?
Yes.
So now you got to pair someone with Jordan Davis. So Will Anderson obviously is not going to be there. I don't know if Wilson will be there. Will this Van Ness kid maybe be there? And I don't know what their grade is on him. So. And you had 70 sacks in the regular season last year. You're losing Hargrave, a guy who had, double-digit sacks, and your other guys are getting older. And I can speak to experience from this one. We had that D-line we had in Philly. One of the reasons it was the main reason it was good is because we had Reggie White, Jerome Brown, and Clyde Simmons. But we also had, Steve Kafusi, Andy Harmon, Mike Pitts, myself. We had a rotation. So, and when you saw the 49ers get to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, they were led by their defense, and that defensive line had a rotation. Then DeForest Buckner, they traded him to the Colts, and they lost a guy from there. But so I can understand the Eagles saying, okay, we lost a guy. Our other guys are getting older. We need to, filter in some younger guys to go with a Jordan Davis, who is that run stuffer guy, not really the pass rush guy, and get another guy on the edge. So I can see that. I see that as being a need for them, because that was a monster part of their team last year, was the defensive side of the ball. But then again, see, this is the fun of the draft. I'm also with you on Robinson. He is the absolute back of what the NFL of today is, where you can run the ball, but you're a great mismatch when you go out in a route, when I line you up in the slot, when I line you up wide to start a series, to see what coverage is going to be, to bring you back in. So it's a tough call. But if they go edge rusher here, I can certainly understand why.
Mike, I said this last year about Jordan Davis, and I take a page out of Jimmy Johnson's book. If when I'm drafting a high pick, 13th pick, 10th pick, what have you, I want production. And I looked at his production at Georgia, and I said, man, in 43 games, he had 9 sacks. That's not very productive to me. And with the 13th pick, and Mike, I'm not saying he wasn't a first rounder. He wasn't a 13th pick. They overdrafted him. He should have been down probably in the 20s. I went like this, Mike. If you get Fletcher Cox out of that guy, you're lucky. But to me, he's more like Vince Wilfork. Yeah. You think the Eagles overdrafted him yesterday?
Well, I think he's in between Wilfork and Fletcher Cox. He's not going to be that pass rusher that Fletcher Cox is. He's going to be that run guy, that run stuff guy occasionally. He can push the pocket on you and collapse it a little bit. But I don't think he's going to be Fletcher. Again, it was one of those situations, I'm sure, Dan, where 13 rolled around. Yep. They saw where their need was, just what I said before. Is he, and they wanted him, but did he have like the 13th pick in the draft grade? Probably not, but they drafted a need there, which shows that they have no problem saying, if we need something, we're going to take it. I could certainly see Robinson here. What he would do for that offense would be incredible, especially with the Jalen Hurts, added running ability that he has as well. I can see both sides of it. That's why I wonder if they even know where they're going yet. We know it's a lying season. You're not going to get the truth out of anybody. But it would be interesting to decide or to see which way they're going, and also what's available. Is Robinson taken before that? Running back taken in the top 10. Are the edge rushers they had a high grade on, are they gone at that point? So you can have your board ready and then have it completely flipped upside down in the first hour of the draft.
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions on the current roster now.
Yeah.
Mike, would you pay Jalen Hurts $50 million a year on 17 ball games?
Well, I mean, I always do it this way, Dan. What's your alternative? What's your
Gardner
alternative?
Minshew?
Yeah, I mean, and Gardner Minshew where is he, in Indy now?
He's in Indy now.
Yeah. They'll either way, if it's a rookie or him, their 7th different starter in 7 years since Andrew Luck left. That's everybody goes nuts with the money that's going on.
Because it affects the roster, Mike.
It does. I get it. But you know what? A very smart guy that I listen to a lot is Andrew Brandt, who used to be in management, dealt with the Brett Favres and Aaron Rodgers of the world when he was in management for the Green Bay Packers. He teaches business classes and such. And I tend to agree with him that says, He says it's a lazy argument to say the quarterback's taking up all the cap. Figure it out. You can figure it out if you have a good capologist and you're looking ahead. When is my quarterback due? What can I spend before that? And a lot of times we see that when a quarterback comes out and is great right out of the gate, you can bring in other guys and pay them around him until you have to pay him. So I understand that money is going to come out of the cap, and it's going to be a lot of it. The cap's going to go up every year, but I tend to lean toward Andrew Brandt in this and say, you know what? Figure it out. You're a capologist. You've got to be able to figure that out. That said, it can be tough to figure out because they're taking a big chunk. But my thought with a quarterback, when everybody loses their mind, when Daniel Jones signed his deal, you know what it is? It's timing. And I'm talking only about the quarterback position. It's the timing. For a while, Joe Flacco was the highest paid quarterback in the league. He went on that great run in the playoffs, won the Super Bowl, and he's the highest paid player in the league. Anybody think Joe Flacco was the best quarterback in the league? No, but he had a great run. The timing was right for the run he had in the Super Bowl, and then he got paid. So that's what this is about, and it's going to happen with Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, and now we're talking Jalen Hurts. So that's what I always say. They should have known during this season, as it was going on, he's going to be our quarterback. At some point, didn't you get that feeling?
Yeah,
I know I
absolutely.
did. So at that point, and I'm sure they did, you start figuring in what's the quarterbacks, what are they making? How do we massage that for the salary cap reasons? And what does that do for the rest of your roster? But you have to know that you have to have a really good to great quarterback at this point, it seems, to win the Super Bowl. And right now, if Aaron Rodgers ends up with the Jets, who's the best quarterback in the NFC right now? It's Jalen Hurts, right? Absolutely. I mean, who else is there? No. It's Jalen Hurts. So that's the going rate. You understand you have to pay it, and you got to figure it out.
Mike, here's the thing on dual threat. I talked to Tony Dungy, Bruce Arians, all different opinions, and Phil Simms on Friday about this. Mike, I just don't think there's a high ceiling for these guys, man. I mean, but it's something funny that Phil said. He goes, you know what, though? You're looking at it wrong. And tell me if you agree what he said. He goes, when you're a dual threat guy and you're in open space, he believes, Mike, that you have more control of the contact when you're in open space than when you do when you're sitting in the pocket. Most of the quarterbacks that get hurt are dual threat. They don't get hurt out in the perimeter. They get hurt in the pocket. So his point is Jalen knows when to get down. He's not as aggressive as Lamar. Lamar plays aggressive. The guy in Buffalo, Mike, he plays aggressive.
Yep.
So maybe it's Jalen's understanding and seeing the game, because I think he lets the game come to him. I think Lamar, he pushes the game, if that makes sense to you.
The biggest thing I worry about with dual threat quarterbacks, and they're here to stay, by the way, is
that's what Bruce said. He said, hey, get used to it. They're coming now. They're coming in droves now.
They are. So the biggest concern to me is when you have more confidence in your legs than your arm, which means you're going to take off and run maybe before you should. There might still be something downfield, but you have more confidence in your legs than making that throw, so you take off. Now, it takes guys a little time to get used to the pocket because you still have to be the pocket passer to be able to make the plays there. Everything else outside of that should be gravy, whether you get out of the pocket to make a play downfield or make the defense commit and then run if you have to. I agree 1,000% with Phil. When they're running the ball, running quarterback, Russell Wilson's the best sliding quarterback we've ever had. He knew when to get down. It's those quarterbacks that try and drop their shoulder and run somebody over or seek out. Now, listen, if it's coming to the end of the game and you need that yard and you're running, you see the sticks and you got to go for it, you got to go for it. There are times when you need to go for it, but there are times to bail out of bounds and there are times to slide. So the quicker a quarterback figures that out, then I agree that they're actually, safer is the wrong word, but I guess to put it what you said earlier, in more control of how that play is going to end when now they're committed and they're past the line of scrimmage and it's them running the ball. They have complete control on when that play and how that play is going to end most of the time. In the pocket, they don't, because they're looking downfield and God knows the shot they could take. Now, as you and I, as former D linemen, are bummed out, you can't really, lay a lick on them much anymore or land on them, but still, there much more can happen to them in the pocket like that. for things that gets pushed in front of them by their legs or a blindside hit, or when they're rolling out and somebody falls on them and breaks their collarbone, like it's happened to Aaron Rodgers. So I do agree with that. When they run, we're all screaming, get down, but that's probably when they're in the most control.
3 last questions for you, Mike. Mike, I wonder where you are in this here. And I have a completely different look on the Deshaun Watson contract. Why aren't more players like you, me, Shannon Sharp, instead of taking shots at that guy getting a guaranteed contract, we should be screaming on the highest hill to get guaranteed contracts for everybody in the league, not just for quarterbacks. And it's got to start there, Mike, before. And look, you hear what Jim Irsay said at the owners' meetings in Arizona a couple of weeks ago. I don't mind paying $50 million. I ain't giving you a guaranteed contract. And I'm thinking to myself, because you lose control of the player.
Right.
Mike, their partners are not the players. Their partners are the TV networks.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We're just the widgets out there.
We're employees.
Which side of the aisle are you on? Again, I mean, I get the character stuff, and I'm not even talking. They're more pissed off about his contract than his character. Think about that, for instance, Mike, when it comes to Deshaun Watson, because he got a raise and a guaranteed contract in Cleveland.
Listen, every owner was horrifically mad at Haslam for doing that, for the guaranteed part, not for the Look at what Haslam did with Kareem Hunt. There you had video of him kicking someone on the ground, and they still signed him knowing he had an 8-game suspension. So them signing Deshaun Watson wasn't shocking, shouldn't have been shocking to anybody. But given that deal, especially when we have no idea who they're bidding against with that deal, so the owners don't want to do it. So listen, Dan, I will always say I want a player to get every dime he possibly can. But this is also a business. And the one thing I would tell players is, and it's so hard to do because I know I did it in the first year of free agency in '93 when that started, is to not take things personal. This is a business, and to not get emotional. But what makes this difficult with Lamar is he's his own agent. So he's right there where an agent would be hearing stuff. He's hearing stuff. That being said, it's going to take a lot, and it's going to be a quarterback. It's going to take a lot for that guaranteed contract to happen. Because while every owner is going to say Deshaun Watson is an outlier, every player, quarterback, rightfully should be saying that's a precedent. So it's out there. It happened. So that's going to continue to happen. But how far are you going to go, Dan? We can scream at the highest mountain that we want, right? Because I'd love to see it happen. And the owners are going to fight this. So the only ones that can have the effect are the quarterbacks, and how far will they go? If Lamar Jackson doesn't get a guaranteed contract, will he then not play for the $32 million of that tag that's on him right now? And will he sit a year? I have never seen yet, Dan, I've never seen yet, unless I'm missing something, that helped the player for sitting a year. And he gave up $32 million. I mean, look at Kirk Cousins, how he played the game, and man, did it work for him. But that's what it's going to take. It's going to take that quarterback to draw that line in ink and say, I'm not walking on the field unless my contract's guaranteed. And then Baltimore, nobody else gets Lamar services, and then Lamar isn't getting paid. Same thing for Joe Burrow. Same thing for Justin Herbert. It's going to come from that. How far are they willing to go? And I just don't know if they're willing to go far enough to say, I'm not stepping foot on that field unless I get a fully guaranteed contract.
Mike, speaking of Baltimore, what happened in Baltimore? I mean, they had 3 years, Mike, to get this deal done. 3 years to get it done. And is it because dual threat injuries, the way he plays the game? I mean, he's only 25, Mike. Mike, he's 25 years old. He's got an MVP. He's won over 70% of his ball games, led the NFL in touchdown passes. Why are Baltimore and the quarterback and the player in the position they're in today?
Well, the one thing that surprises me too about this team is they've been a playoff, team.
They've been brilliant in the draft and free agency. Brilliant.
But you know what they haven't been brilliant, Dan, is at wide receiver.
Correct.
You know, it's almost like talking about Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Give me some weapons. You got Mark Andrews.
Really, the last guy, Mike, is Anquan Bolden. I mean,
guys.
I mean, right? That's years ago.
I know you had Hollywood Brown. You traded him away, but now you're bringing Odell. Now you give maybe 18 mil to a guy for a year to bring him in coming off an ACL. But when you had a hell of a defense, you had Andrews, you had Lamar. You didn't really do anything when you didn't have to pay Lamar. Like I said, he was great coming out. So you could have paid others to surround better, and they didn't. That surprises me a lot that they didn't do it in the playoff runs that they had. Now this is totally about guaranteed contracts. And in my opinion, it came at an impasse. We know what the supposed offer was of a 250 mil or whatever, 133 guaranteed, 175 guaranteed with injury, blah blah blah, all that. I think it got to a point where Baltimore said, "All right, we'll put this tag on you so you can go get a deal anywhere else. Anybody that wants to offer you that deal can go ahead and offer you that deal," and they give us 2 first-rounders. And I think they did it just to see what kind of deal somebody else would offer, and then they would match it. Say, okay, you went out and got that deal, we'll match it, because right now we're just at an impasse, and we see what's happening. Nobody's jumping in. And you want to say collusion. I don't even think the owners need to talk to each other to collude in the fact that they don't want guaranteed contracts. I think it is the unspoken truth of those owners that they do not want to do what Haslam did in Cleveland, and they will not do it for anything. So I think Baltimore said, go get an offer. And then, because I don't care what anybody says, bridges can always be mended. It's amazing what stacks of money can do to mend a bridge. So if they end up matching and he goes back to Baltimore, somehow I think things will be okay. But the offers aren't coming in because nobody wants that guaranteed deal. So what happens first? Who blinks first? The billionaires who aren't giving that out or gave it out one time, or the millionaire who is looking to, use Deshaun Watson, saying that's a precedent and I'm the next to do it, and then there'll be guys behind me to do it as well. That's what it is. Who blinks? And unfortunately, in most cases in the NFL, whether it's CBA, union, strikes, whatever, it's been the players, unfortunately, that have blinked first.
Final question for you. Mike, tell me what side of the aisle you're on here with Kyle Shanahan. Him and John Lynch have done such a great job at building that roster up. But for me, Mike, I think Kyle Shanahan is not a very good quarterback coach, and I'll tell you why. RG3 hurt in Washington when he was the OC. Jimmy Garoppolo hurt in San Francisco. Trey Lance hurt in San Francisco. Brock Purdy hurt in San Francisco. Mike, this guy doesn't protect his quarterbacks. I mean, he comes up with schemes, Mike, but I think he's a great play caller. But when it comes to formulating how to protect your guy, you're putting a tight end on Hassan Reddick, who ran right around that guy, and got your quarterback killed in that NFC title game, and you had a shot to win that thing. You had won 12 straight going into that thing. Am I off base here, or is it just coincidence?
No, I mean, listen, you always look at that. Whenever I see a tight end on an edge rusher, I say, okay, there's no way that should ever happen. You want to chip with a tight end or chip with a back, that's fine before they go out. But to just have them one-on-one. Dan, I'd have to go back and look at was Garoppolo's injury, was Trey Lance's injury. I know Purdy's was. RG3 was on the sideline, wasn't it, running out of bounds, if I remember? I don't remember where their injuries were. I know Purdy's was in the pocket.
I thought they brought him back too soon too, Mike. I thought that had something to do with he had a surgery. I'm talking RG3, and they brought him back too soon, and his ACL wasn't completely healed. But
well, that could
Mike,
be.
Is it just coincidence then? Is it just coincidence?
Again, I would have to look at, if one team starts having 5, 8, 10 players start to pull hamstrings, you start to look at the strength coach, right? And start to say, okay, what's going on here? So again, I would have to look at those injuries. I'm not saying I don't agree with your point, but I'd have to see what those injuries are. And if they are in fact, if your quarterback's getting hit by because your tight end's blocking an edge rusher, or you're just saying to hell with everything else, we're letting our 5 guys block even if someone's getting his ass kicked and not helping him at all. Yeah, I got issues with that. You got to read the room. You can't just say we're playing this protection no matter what. And if our quarterback gets hit, that's your fault on the line because you didn't block it. Yeah, it's your fault because you didn't block it. But what are we going to do? We got a lot of game to go. Do we just get our quarterback killed or do we change our protection? So I would have to do a little bit more of a deep dive into those injuries and the hits that the quarterbacks are taking there, because that team is still, ready to go. I mean,
it's them and the Eagles, right, Mike? It's them and the Eagles.
Without a doubt. And, are we getting to the point? Are they going to have to admit at some point of Trey Lance if they shouldn't have done what they did? Now, on Trey Lance's side, it's not very fair yet because he's been injured. So that's a tough call. But Brock Purdy comes in and he's going to be the lead dog to win that starting job. And, then you're going to start to look at, was the Trey Lance thing, did it not work out? Because now you have, 2 high-pick quarterbacks on your roster and Mr. Irrelevant. And Mr. Irrelevant right now is the starter. So it is kind of odd.
Do you still have a sandwich named after you in Philly?
I did, not anymore. For a while, I had it at Notre Dame in the restaurant they have right on campus there.
What was the sandwich called at Notre Dame?
It was like simple, like the Golic burger or Golic sandwich or something. But man, there was a lot of meat on it, my friend. I mean, there was.
Wait a minute, between the 2 Golic brothers and then your son. I mean, what?
Listen, there was not one vegetable on that at all. It was all meats and cheeses. That's it. If you wanted any kind of vegetable, they wouldn't put it on the same plate as a sandwich.
Mike, how can people watch you? I know you're doing stuff with your boy and your podcast and all. I know you do some college football. How can they see you?
Yeah, I do. For DraftKings, my son and I both work for DraftKings. He does a pod every day. I do one once a week with a young lady named Jess Smetana. She's a Notre Dame grad from 2016. It's called Golic and Smetty. And Mike does his. It's called Gojo. And then Westwood One has the national radio contract for the NFL. So like last year, I did all the Sunday night games and the Super Bowl and the playoff games.
Did you work with Boomer?
No, I did not work with Boomer. And this was me and Ryan Radke. I'd work with Kevin Harlan, Kurt Warner, so that's what I've been doing the last couple of years. I also did college as well, but now Mike is doing the college. My son's doing the college. I'm doing the NFL. So still staying busy. Just don't have that everyday show. I may get back to that at some point. We'll see. But not getting up at 4:15 every morning has been pretty nice.
No, dude, you look way better than the vampire, because I was a vampire for about 25 years. And I used to have to go to bed at 8:30 at night, like I was 10 years old, Mike. So I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, it takes a toll. I would see old pictures of myself. I was like 300 and some pounds. And I'd look at my wife. I'd say, why didn't you tell me I was fat? She's like, oh, I didn't think you were. I said, look at me. I got 4 chins in this picture. I said, my God, what are you doing?
Hey, Mike, thank you so much for your time, man. I so appreciate when you find time for me. Thank you so much. Good luck to you, Mike. We'll talk down the road.
All right, Dan. Sounds good. I'll see you.
You bet. Mike Golic. We appreciate him doing that. Do me a favor, guys. Please hit the like button. Hour number 2. Don't forget we're going to have Gary Cobb with us from Fox 29. We'll reset. Keep it here on the National Football Show.